Good morning, everybody. It's Kim. I am going to do something with these monster zucchinis that were hiding out in my garden. I'm going to turn these into pineapple. Yes, I have found some recipes online, and I'm using the one from the National Centers on Home Canning and Preserving, I believe. It's the name of the website. Anyway, I can link it in the description below. And it only needs a couple of ingredients, one of which is your zucchini. I need some pineapple juice, lemon juice, and sugar. That's the only ingredients I need to do this, other than, my basic canning supplies, which I have a video that I made of all the canning supplies I need with some alternatives. I will definitely link that below, so you will be able to know what I use for canning, and instead of having to run out and spend a lot of money, some of the alternatives that you can use. But what I'm going to do is, you can do this as shredded or the chunks, and I think I'm going to do pineapple chunks, because if I want them smaller, I can always chop them up later if I were to make, say, pineapple muffins, or throw them in a carrot cake or something like that. So anyway, the first step is I'm going to peel these up and I'm going to chop them. Got to get my canner onto the boil, get my jars heated up, and hopefully I have a pot big enough to put this in. If not, I'm going to do it in two separate pots. But I'm going to get to work peeling and cutting these up, and I'll be back in just a few. Okay, now the one thing that the website does not show you or tell you is how to prepare your zucchini. Now, the larger the zucchini, the more likely you're going to have of having larger seeds in the middle. I'm lucky I don't, but I don't know if you could see that. You could see there's like a ring here where it's a little firmer, and then you have the center, which is kind of squishy and spongy. I don't use that center there. I just take a spoon or something, and it's easy to just scoop out that soft, spongy bit, because I think it throws the texture off of what you're making, especially since it's going to be canned. So I just scrape out that bit in the center until I get down past the spongy bit. You can use that in other recipes, since there's not a lot of big seeds. If you wanted to save it for zucchini bread or whatever, I could dehydrate it, but to be honest, it's very hot out today. I'm going to throw some in the freezer, and then I'm going to feed it to my turkeys and my chickens, and they like that little bit of coldness that they can get from it. So I prepare my zucchini by removing the center bit. Then I'm going to very carefully chop it, and you want it in relatively the same size, because once again, you're going to cook this a little bit. You want them to cook fairly even. And I want mine to look like the small pineapple pieces, so I'm going to roughly chop them into pieces about this size, like they would be in the can, the tidbits, I guess they're called. So I want mine to be a little bit smaller. You can chop them bigger. If you have a small zucchini, you could cut them into rings and punch the center out. I think that'd be cute. But also what I do is I measure as I go, as I'm cutting, because you need to kind of have an idea if you're going to have enough supplies as far as your liquid goes and things like that, because this particular recipe, if I'm making a full recipe, calls for 4 quarts, which is 16 cups of chunked zucchini. Well, I don't know if I have 16 cups worth, so I keep track of how I go. I may have to have the recipe or something like that, but when you know how much zucchini you have, it's a lot easier to know how many supplies you need. So I'm going to continue to do my zucchini and get it all processed and ready to go before we move on to the next step. Okay, I thought I'd do a little zucchini math for you. I have my zucchini. As you can see, it's peeled and chopped, and I took the center out. I went back and I weighed everything. I started out with 2 zucchini that weighed just over 5 pounds prior to peeling and taking out the center and chopping. Once it was chopped, I got it. This bag weighs just over 3 pounds, actually 3.6 pounds, 3 pounds 6 ounces, and that is right at just over 8 cups. So I'd say a little less than 9 cups, weighs about 3 pounds once it's been peeled and the core is taken out and it's chopped. Just so it gives you an idea. Now, if I use the full recipe, you're going to have to start out with about 10 to 11 pounds of whole zucchini, and then once it's been peeled and cored and everything, you're going to end up with about 6 to 7 pounds when it's ready to go in the pot. So obviously I only have the 2, so I'm taking the recipe for the National Centers on Canning and Home Preserving. I'm sorry, I'm probably saying that wrong. And I'm going to cut that recipe in half based on the amount of zucchini I have. And they say that a half recipe will yield 4 to 5 pints. So just wanted to give you that zucchini math, so if you have a bunch of zucchini, you kind of know what you need to do this recipe. Okay, based on the amount of zucchini I have, which is just over 8 cups or just over 3 pounds of peeled and cored and chopped zucchini, I need 3 cups of the pineapple juice. To that, I'm going to add 3/4 of a cup of bottled lemon juice. Now, it's recommended to use bottled juice because the pH on that is kept at a precise measurement. And then 1.5 cups of sugar. I've never tried this without that much sugar. I don't know if you can use artificial. That would be up to you to try it, because, you know, that I'm not 100% sure on. And then, excuse me a moment, I'm going to gently warm this just to melt the sugar a bit. Now, in the meantime, my canner is on. I filled it with enough water to cover my jars, plus a little headspace. In that water, I added some vinegar to keep my jars from getting cloudy on the outside or getting a deposit on it. And my jars are warming in my oven to about 225 to 250 degrees. So I need to warm this up just long enough to start melting that sugar. And then I need to add my pineapple. My zucchini turned pineapple. I'm going to bring it to a boil, turn it down, and simmer it. You need to simmer it for 20 minutes. Okay? So I'm going to go ahead and, that's melted. I'm going to add my zucchini. I'm going to make sure, of course, that I stir it frequently. Let's see if I can do that without splashing too much. Get that last little piece out of there. Okay. Now what I need to do is warm this to a boil, and I'm going to simmer it then, once it boils, for 20 minutes. And when I get to that point, we'll come back just before it's done, and we'll go on to our next step, which is putting it into the jars and processing it. Right, there you go. My zucchini has simmered for 20 minutes after bringing to a boil. Now, honestly, doesn't that start to look like pineapple? Those little chunks in the jar? Oops. Anyway, I'm going to get set up to put these in the cans, and we'll get ready to do the next step. Okay, I remember my jars were in the oven. They're warm, so they're very hot. I don't want to touch them. The next step I'm going to do is I'm going to divide my pineapple into as many jars as I think I'm going to need. I always warm up a lot more jars than I think I'm going to need. What I'm going to do, let me see if I can get you a good view here of, there we go, the pot. Trying to get you a little bit in focus. What I like to do, it's kind of like a two-step thing. Because this is wide and a lot of times it wants to fall, a lot of times what I'll do is I like to scoop out my food, and I can either attempt to pour it directly in there, and these are probably going to work today, and I bring it up to where my headspace, which on these it's a 1/2 inch. I have my little, debubbler here. All I'm going to do is gently move. I'm not packing it down. I'm just kind of putting it where I want it to be. You don't want to pack it because you need those spaces to get your proper processing time. Then I can add a little bit more pineapple to where my headspace is. Well, I do it this way simply because it keeps the food from floating so much in the jars. A lot of times when you go straight with the liquid and everything wants to float up. I want to put enough where it's still under the liquid, but my jars are not looking half empty, okay? So that's under my headspace, and I'm going to go ahead and do all of these jars. It's going to give me an idea like how many I'm going to need too. Because, like I said, I always get an odd amount. And if one's a little bit light, I can always steal a couple pieces, and so they all kind of float evenly. Now this one's a little full. I'm going to take a couple pieces out. I'll get a spoon for that in just a minute. And I know I'm going to get at least 4 jars, hopefully 5 out of this, or 4.5. That's why I always warm up some of the smaller jars as well. Oop, I probably got that one a little full too. Now I'm not packing. See, I'm just kind of gently moving it around to get rid of some of the air pockets. And you'll debubble it anyway, and then now I can tell that I may even be able to add a couple more pieces in there from the other jar that's a little full. Okay, very good. I am going to have a little extra here, it looks like, so I'm going to get, I think, my small jar out of the oven. Move a couple pieces around here. Alright, so that looks pretty good. That one could use a couple pieces, so let me grab a spoon. And I'm going to move a couple pieces. Oh, this one actually looks pretty good. They're all below the headspace. Let me grab out my other jar from the oven. A small one here. Of course, it's in the back where I'm going to hopefully don't burn myself. I just want to see what I have left, as I might add a little bit more to these. I'd rather them be a little full than, like I said, I just don't like all my stuff all floaty. Just me. This way I can separate it out and put the extra pieces in the other jars. Oh, that one's going to be too full. Well, yeah, maybe not once you pack it down. Just want to make sure, always keep your proper headspace. If in doubt, give it a little extra room. Never go below what the recommended headspace is on your jars. And if you really think that this is going to not taste like pineapple, I'm telling you, it's pretty darn close. If you don't tell people, they're probably not going to know that it's not real pineapple. There. Okay, now I have all my, after I add my liquid, if these are too low, I can always steal it from this, extra jar. Told you it's hot. Now, I get rid of my spider. And I'm going to need my ladle so I can do my liquid. Piece of pineapple floaty there. I will check my headspace before I'm finished. Because I have to debubble as well. I kind of do them all at the same time because then I can, like I said, if I have too little, I can always steal from that last little jar, which can always go in the refrigerator to be eaten right away if I don't have enough for it. And if you have extra juice, you can freeze it. So if you decide to do another batch, or keep it in your refrigerator for, I would go no more than 3 days. I'm going to, that extra pineapple juice I had in that jar, that's in my refrigerator, again, no more than 3 days. And then I will hopefully have, which I know, I will probably have some more zucchini out there. All right, now I want to go around the jars a little bit, just making sure there's no big air pockets. Most of those are gone. And some of these need to be topped up a little bit with some more of the juice. There we go. Hopefully my canner is going to boil soon because I want to put these into hot water. It's pretty close. I can hear it. You can start hearing it almost boiling in there. Now, check your headspace. You can either use the mark on a tool like I did. Basically, I hold it to the edge and I have proper headspace. Or, like I said, make yourself something or find something that has the proper headspace. They all could use just a tad more liquid, which is good. I actually do that now with a spoon, just so I don't overdo. Probably could use a bigger spoon than that, but also to make sure that my pineapple is under the liquid a little bit. I will have some extra juice left. I guess if you want to, you could can this extra bit to save for later. Certainly put that in a jar and label it. That way when you need to use it, you're ready to use it. All right, those are still good. Just a tiny bit more, another teaspoon or so in each jar. I am a little picky about how I do things because, you know what, I spent a lot of time growing it, and now I want to preserve it so that I can have it for another time. So take your time with this. You know, I know sometimes you get tired and you're in a rush, but you want the best quality possible canned goods that you can get at home. What I'm doing right now, and I'm off to the side, I apologize. I got a towel, paper towel, and I soaked it with some vinegar because you have to make sure that these rims are scrupulously clean or your jar's seal could fail. Now, in my video where I told you your canning supplies, I did forget to mention 2 or 3 little things. One is to have paper towels. You always need them, or something, dishcloth. Always have a pot. Like I mentioned, I do simmer my lids. See, they're at a simmer, not a boil. But it also, if you don't think you have enough boiling water in your canner, it's nice to have extra water so that you have to make sure that you get a minimum of 1 inch over the top of these jars, so that, they're safe. Anyway, I have some extra juice. I'm going to see here if, I don't know if I have a full pint, but I do have that 12-ounce jar. I would like to just put some of this liquid into a jar to see if I can save it here. It's going to be close. If it's not enough, then I will transfer it to my other jar, but I'm not going to waste it because you never know, I might have a little extra next time and need the juice. Put that That is pretty darn close. For now, I'm just going to put that, I'm going to put it in my other jar. I do want to try canning it and see. I don't want to waste it. Because you can also use it as a pineapple drink, because it is the juice after all. The little extra vitamins in it from the zucchini. And it's going to be a bit perfect. Oop, it might be a little full. Ooh, that's a little full. All right, I'm going to scoop off a little bit. Good. All right, so that's what I'm going to do, and I'm going to just keep the rest and probably drink it. Ooh, that jar's pretty warm there. All right, so I have my jars. I'm going to put my lids on. They've been wiped well with the vinegar. Put my lids. If I was smart, I would have warmed up that extra pineapple juice and canned it, but I'm just going to freeze it then. Now I need my rings. Now the rings I don't warm, but you could if you wanted to. You put them on what's called finger tight. So you put them on and then you just give it a tight. You don't want to crank it. You just want it, use your fingers to tighten it. You have to allow these jars to vent a little bit. You may need to use something to hold on to the jar when you tighten them just a little bit. And my fingers are getting kind of used to it. All right, so, I'm going to do this one too, almost forgot. Into the water bath canner. You bring it back to a boil, and the bubbles have to be coming to the surface, and you want to process both pints and half pints, this is a 3/4 pint, for 15 minutes at a boil, and then you turn your canner off, I better get a thing for that, and wait for 5 minutes before you take your jars out. Now my boil is it's boiling really heavy there, so I'm going to carefully place my jars into the canner. I don't know if you could see me, I apologize if you can't see me back here, but I'm just putting my jars. I put them, I'll show you, let me show you real quick how I arrange them in the jar. In the canner here. I like to go kind of like the four corners in a way, because then it's balanced, and then I can add my other ones in between or in the center, however you want to do it. It just makes it a little more balanced. Oh, there, sorry about that, when I drop them down. So anyway, I'm going to process these for 15 minutes and wait the 5, and then we'll take them out of the canner. Here we go. They were processed accordingly. Sorry I didn't get to show you taking them out of the canner, but my battery died as they were getting ready to come out. And there they are, ready to be labeled. I use a Sharpie and mark it on the top, and I will let them sit here for about 24 hours before removing the rings, and onto my shelf they go, so they can be eaten during the winter time when I don't have a million zucchini coming. So let me know what you think. If you have any questions, please leave them below. Any comments, if you've ever made it before, let me know what you thought, and have a wonderful day.